Hello, everyone. Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, thanks for confirming. Yeah, we have a few people on the call. Let's get started. So first up, we want to announce that yesterday we released Ratify RC1, and I want to thank everyone for your contribution and your patience around rebasing and branching. We did add a lot of features in this release, so I feel like we didn't have enough stabilization time. So we have already seen like 5 newly created issues since the release. Nothing major yet. A lot of things around user configuration, like when there's different scenarios enabled, disabled. So we're really happy to see them. That means everyone, like people are having their eyes on them and trying them out. So over the next week or a few days, we will be like going through these bugs and queue them up for our, like understand what we need to address for RC2. So yeah, anything to add, Louise, Akash?
No, I think you've nailed it. We do need we do need to we appreciate all the feedback and all the bugs logged, and we will be triaging and trying to address as much of them as we can during the next couple of releases.
Are there any questions related to the release? There are some breaking changes. For example, we've bumped up the minimum version of Gatekeeper. It's not compatible with, say, Gatekeeper 3.9. So I do want everyone to validate your scenario and just make sure all these breaking changes are compatible with your user scenario. Okay, if no more questions, we can move on to the PRs. Yeah, our PR queue is finally back to a single digit. No, we've merged the OCI plugin finally, and Jimmy, that's been merged to the main branch. So yeah, from our last discussion that you need to build a image with your custom plugin to test out your scenario.
Okay, thank you.
The first PR on the list, I believe Sajay is still working on the contribution document. Akash, is there anything to discuss for adding local registry support?
Nope, not really. It's still in review process right now, but basically the PR switches all of our builds to use a local registry, and then it adds all of the signing and artifact generation creation support there too. So
Is that a auth enabled local registry?
no, it's not. So this is just to switch from the current public images that we use from that Wabbit Networks ACR. So that's the first step, and then the following steps will be to test out some of the other auth scenarios that we have for the Aura store. So.
Got it. Cool. Next PR is the Helm updates for TLS. Is someone already reviewing this? Oh, yes. I see Akashi already are reviewing this. That's great. Next one by Binbin as well, enable cache at executor level. I guess it's open for draft, and Binbin will let us know once it's ready. I wonder how is, Akash, do you know, how is this different to the other cache that Anish is working on, like on the request cache? Are they different? Like that one caches the result of the verification.
Yeah, so yeah, actually I left a comment on this PR too to understand like where this actually fits in, because there does seem to be some overlap as well. So
yeah, okay. We will discuss with Binbin further. Cool. Any comments on pull request? Anyone?
So to be clear, with the OCI artifacts plugin merge, you said it's merged into main now. So when we're going forward for the next milestone, will that also be in main, or that have its own milestone branch? I'm not familiar with how you guys are doing it.
Yeah, so I think most things work pretty well with RC1. So closer to the target date, we will cut the branch from main and create a release branch, say RC2. And this has already, the OCI plugin PR has already been merged to main. So it's going to be in the RC2 branch when we create it.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, no. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have a question on this topic. So, right, I guess yesterday or day before, right around just before we officially released RC1, the team on our side was trying to test with the RC1. I guess it was a branch at the time before we tagged and cut the release. And we found a lot of, I guess, some friction and difficulty in trying to figure out like what's next. We've had experience with some other projects where they have like either nightly builds of container images or something like that, where we could use the chart but then specify an upstream Ratify, a nightly build or a latest commit or something like that. And so Ratify right now doesn't have it. I don't know if there's like other teams that have like a staging or an internal build to test things before we actually cut RC1. This is kind of more of the like speaking as an advanced Ratify user / Ratify dev. That would be really helpful for us. It's not a must-have, but if it's not too much work, it would save us a lot of time when we're trying to figure out like, hey, is RC1 going to meet our needs, just before it's released? Or same with RC2, it's going to happen again. We want to kick the tires on RC2 before it's official so that we can get any last minute fixes in. And right now it's a little bit of a challenge.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely a valid point. Thank you, Noel. So would the process look like we can push to a staging environment, like we can have a job that runs every day and that push like a official staging image, like would that be helpful?
Yeah, that I think Matt, speak up as well. I think that would solve our problem effectively. Like if we could say point to whatever the build was from last night, and that was on GHCR, and it was just it wasn't an official release, but it was a nightly build or something. That would have saved us from having to manually build a whole bunch of images and push them all over the place ad hoc.
Yep, totally.
Don't want to mess up anybody's like organization scheme or like increase costs unnecessarily, but yeah, it would definitely have helped us out.
Yeah, I agree that would have been really beneficial as we were working through the issues that we were seeing. That'd be awesome.
Is there a project that already do this so we can explore that option?
I think Auras might have a nightly build. We can follow up on that. I think it's a good point. But yeah, I think Auras already produces a semi-frequent build. People just basically grab. Now, I think a lot of that was sort of hinged on having a good test base. I think we've made some good progress on our test base ourselves that we can actually like produce these builds in a more regular cadence. So yeah, let's just have a conversation offline into what would be a good cadence for having more like automatically produced builds.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, I don't think we have any presentation discussion items on the agenda. Might be, I see, Matt, you've created a issue today for the workload identity and cosign when they're enabled at the same time. Noah and I have left some comments. Yeah, and I see Sajay have added a comment. So +1 on prioritizing fixing cosign auth.
Yeah, I think all the feedback that's in there makes sense. Disabling that obviously got us past kind of our immediate blocker. So I think having that documented, or I think it's your comment actually, yeah, the second one up, maybe removing the default being set to true would unblock somebody that was coming kind of from scratch, trying to do it all, and they wouldn't get blocked by it.
Yeah, and I think Noel pointed out like there's an opportunity for test coverage. We'll look into that as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I see Joshua and Raymond and Rajasa. You just joined the call. Where we don't have any presentation items on the agenda. Do you have any questions around we talked a little bit about RC1 release in the beginning. Do you have any questions or any discussions items to add?
Hey, Susan, thanks for the call out. This is Rajasa or RJ. No, we represent the team that Noel and Luker are a part of. So just listening in. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Anything else to discuss, anyone?
I just have a quick thing. I think it was Akash mentioned it earlier, I believe, about building out kind of some new testing and workflows with local registry. We've done a lot of that in our pipeline. So I don't know if you want to reach out. If you haven't already started, we could probably just hand you some stuff that might jumpstart your work a little bit there.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you for the call out on that. I actually went through some of the issues that you had filed previously where you had dumped some of those sample scripts there, and I did use that as some inspiration and copied some of that. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, perfect.
And if you have a chance, I'd love to get a review from your side as well, since you guys already have a pipeline, to see if we're missing anything or maybe we can improve something. So it's an open PR right now.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look.
Thanks.
Oh, Matt, on the topic of test, last week, Akash and I did see some test failures on the schema validation test again.
Okay.
Looking at the log, it looks like it's a timeout. So we're wondering, is there a possibility that, like given that you have to download the schema to validate the artifact, could we move the schema download to the initialize phase of the verifier instead of at the time of verification? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we could also, there's also the option to have it, well, probably wouldn't work for like the general use, but it can just be local as well. There is an option to have it be file based, as long as it, you can path it out. But yeah, I could look into doing that, so then it only happens. So just happen the initial download of any schemas you have mapped, and then it would just reference those later. Right? Okay.
Yeah, that's great. If I see a failure again, I will send you the run ID, like, because last time we're trying to wrap up the release, we're just like, oh, rerun this test, and I just succeeded.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we could think through that, what that might look like, because depending on kind of all this cache stuff plays out, there might be a play there as well, if there's sort of a generic thing we could use for that, or how often would we just assume that it's just, it'd have to be reinitialized to get the latest. Not that the scheme would probably, I can't imagine these would change often, but that's probably okay, I would think. Yeah, let me take a look at that and see what that might look like.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Noel here. I forgot to add it to the agenda. I was wondering if we could do like maybe a brief discussion on issue number 576 about the key vault and the certs.
Yes.
It'd be nice to, like, right now we're not technically blocked because we understand how Ratify works, and we can go in and use like Ratify test cert or things. But as a quick overview for the other folks on the call who might not have seen this issue, since I think most of the maintainers are here. So we have some functionality that was recently added where we have this cool feature where we can use like CRDs, and we've been able to integrate with Azure Key Vault to access the signing certificates, like the public key, to read those down and use those during validation against notary signatures, Notary V2. So that all works great. And so we've been testing a lot with like self-signed certs and things like that. In our experience with customers, we work with companies that do like they'll have like a central CA, and you don't get that private key, and so what happens, you kind of get a leaf cert, you sign with your leaf cert, you do your things. But what we really want to say in Ratify is we want to define a policy that says I trust everything that my company CA descends from that root. So anything from that root is kind of good, or maybe an intermediate CA. But anyway, something where that CA doesn't belong in my like cluster operator team's key vault. Like I don't have permission over that thing. And it comes up again if I pull from something like a public registry, like I don't know, I'm familiar with Microsoft Container Registry. So like I'm not going to have the keys for Microsoft Container Registry as a user, but I still want to validate that I pulled down a good, I don't know, Mariner image or something like that, and that it has been signed by Microsoft someday. So this is two different situations where like I'm not going to have that cert in Key Vault. To store a cert in Azure Key Vault, you need to have the private key, which I don't have. So I can't use the Key Vault integration feature for that at all. Like, so there's no way that I could ever improve the Key Vault feature to accommodate for this scenario. So what I'm trying to solve for is how do I get that public key, which is, I could download a cert file or whatever, and get that into Ratify. Right now it's a little bit difficult. So I can pass in the Ratify. There's a Ratify test cert variable, which is kind of like it almost feels more like a dev value in the Helm chart file. But I can pass that in. But down at the bottom, I had an idea this morning. Maybe it would be possible in the certificate store CRD to have an inline option. So if you scroll down a little bit more, if my CRD looks something like this, where it said provider inline, we can call it whatever we want, but then, whether it's base 64 encoded or it's just the raw string, something like this where I can say, here's my cert, please use this. And then I think if that was implemented, the rest of Ratify should pick it up, store it in memory, and it would act just the same. It feels like that would be pretty friendly and integrated. I just want to bring that idea up for discussion and see, what we think about this from the maintainer's point of view.
Yeah, this totally makes sense. And yesterday we were on a different thread where someone had a similar requirement, like where they want to use the certificate store CRD, but they want to read from a local path. And where we landed was also maybe we can implement a new certificate provider where we can provide from local path. And in this issues case 576, we can implement the inline certificate provider. So yeah, I think it's totally reasonable, and that would also give a good user experience.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to make sure that was brought up. I know we're, I don't know what's in scope for RC2. I know we're figuring that out, but cool. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood, and I could answer any questions from my side, but it seems like y'all are aware. So awesome. Thank you.
Just wondering, with this could be inline, or if for the private infrastructure, if there's a way, like we could also implement a certificate provider that would interact with whatever private infrastructure as well, right?
Yeah, and I don't really know like what private infrastructure a given company is going to have. Like they could run their own CA, they might get their certs from DigiCert and have like an external, like they might have an external security team and they use like a completely custom API to get their certs. I'm just not really sure. I know that this will work. Because I was able to test with the Ratify Verify CLI command. So it's got the information that we need. So
and the certificate would be an array, right? Would it be one certificate or an array?
I'm not sure. I guess it could be an array. I don't know whether the store needs to be like one item, like one cert per item, so you can add and remove individual certs, or if you would pass in an array and do them all at once. I don't have a preference. I just made something up and put it here as an idea.
Sure. And is there a timeline that you're hoping, like if there's like an urgent need, we'll definitely queue this up for RC2, but currently we're only starting the planning for RC2.
Yeah, of course. No, I don't have an urgent need. This is kind of like trying to think a little bit ahead. We're going to go work with customers to try to help them with some of their signing problems, but I don't have one in mind yet. And I don't know what so it's a total question mark. They might need this day one. We can help them out and get them unblocked with maybe a few Helm post render hack things. So it's nice to have right now, but eventually we would like something like this, but it's not, urgent in the next 30 days as far as I know or anything like that.
Yep. Thanks for that clarification. It'll just help us with prioritization. Cool. Anything else before we wrap up? All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. Good to see you all. Have a good week.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Take care.